Hello and welcome to the Rugby Chat podcast. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a website, podcast, Twitter account and YouTube channel bringing you all the best in rugby predictions and opinion and all of that kind of good stuff. So don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcasting app so that we drop into your ears every single day of the week. Because yes, that's right, there's a show pretty much at 8 p.m. most nights and also post-match reactions at weekends. So there's lots and lots of rugby, and don't forget to give us a 5-star review. If you'd like to watch what happens behind the covers, this show's live on YouTube at 8 p.m. New Zealand time every Tuesday. And you can also join in the discussion on Twitter, where I've posted the 5 questions, or actually they'll be posted now because it's now 1 minute past 8. So yes, we do have some automation and fun and games going on here. So join me this evening. We have back after a bit of a hiatus, having a bit of a holiday, a rest, a refresh, and coming back all guns blazing is the real Mike Pullman. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm back off the bench. It's great to be here. And yeah, let's talk some rugby. I'm excited.
and joining us all the way from Thailand, the man of mystery in the Orient, it's Herman. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Paul. How are you today?
I'm good. Well, you see, you're not on social media, so you're a bit of a ghost person, a bit like Ghost Protocol or something like that from Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
This week, obviously, we'll be talking about. Sorry, you. This week, obviously, we'll be talking about Super Rugby again, in particular round 7, and we're also going to go through the conference tables because we're about a third of the way through. So it is a good time to take a breather, a refresh at that. But first off. Is the New Zealand franchise dominance in Super Rugby a problem for New Zealand rugby? This is one that Herman wanted to kick us off with. So Herman, why do you see it as being a problem? All this winning is great fun, surely.
Yeah, short term it is. But long term, it could raise some questions because the whole New Zealand setup is financed by a tight cooperation with Australia and South Africa, and especially Australia, I would say. And by all accounts, all the interest in Australia is going down, and it's really not helping that the Kiwi sides are hammering them on a weekly basis. And I think I sent to you before the show, Paul, some stats that it's brutal reading to see how much the Kiwi teams are dominating. And I think there's also this school of thought that for New Zealand to prosper and remain number 1, they pretty much need a strong Australia, both a strong Wallabies team and strong Super Rugby team. So that, especially that the Super Rugby teams are slipping so much, I can see that could be a concern. And another thing I could add there too, if we're looking at results in the Under-20 World Cup, Australia hasn't even gone to the semifinals since 2011. So it's not like there's a big new golden generation coming through in Australia either. And on top of that, it seems like New Zealand actually have a golden generation coming through. So whatever gap we're seeing now, it looks more likely to get bigger than smaller.
So I'll just run through some of those stats for people, and I'm not quite sure where you got it from, but basically since 2016, so including 2016, 2017, and the game on Friday night, there's been 53 games between the Tasman rivals. Australia have won 3, drawn 1, and lost 49. The average losing margin for an Australian side has been by 20 points for the past 2 seasons. And of those 49 defeats, 12 have got a losing bonus point. So whereas the New Zealand sides have accrued 27 try bonus point wins in the remaining 37, which shows that for every close loss, it says there have been 2 floggings. The last season where Australia teams performed equally with New Zealand opponents was back in 2014 when it was 1-11, lost 11. In 2013, it was the Australians won 12, New Zealand and lost 10. So 2013 is the last time that the Australian sides had a positive winning margin against New Zealand sides. And obviously since then, things have just gone in one direction. Mike, as a New Zealand fan, Chiefs fan, do you see it as being a worry, or do you want more competition out of Australia, or are you quite comfortable giving them a good old hiding every week?
Yeah, no, it's a tremendous worry actually, because you know, as good as the Kiwi derbies are and as much money as that makes New Zealand rugby, it doesn't really do a whole lot for in my opinion, the competition as a whole. And you know, I think we need a competition that, you know, there are going to be close contests in those games, you know, because you look at the Crusaders versus Rebels, or, you know, Chiefs versus Force when they used to be in the competition, and you just go, well, no, you know, this is not going to be close at all. And I think that the translation that all of this has in two areas. First area being, you know, the Tri-Nations or the Rugby Championship is tremendous, because it takes the Wallabies 2 or 3 matches against the All Blacks to actually be competitive, and then by that time, you know, they've lost the Bledisloe. Secondly, like you've got in the notes, I think it does raise the question about maybe does South Africa move into Europe, and, you know, where does Australia go? It's a tremendous problem. It's all good for New Zealand rugby, but it's definitely a huge problem for those other two nations.
And if the other two did go, then it'd be a huge problem for New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand rugby basically is funded by the All Blacks brand, and maybe they'd be able to get other games away from it, but they do need these derby. They do need this competition, and particularly the trips to South Africa is one of the things that the the players and the coaches have said they need to maintain their standard. Actually, even though they do go and win, it's still a challenge for them to go over there and do that. I made a kind of flippant comment in the notes here saying that we'll continue losing, make Australia look to Asia via Twiggy's new competition. We've got to see whether Twiggy's competition even takes off. I can't see Australia going that way, to be honest. It was a flippant comment in the notes, but South Africa moving up to Europe is a definite possibility. They've already taken 2 teams up there. They're talking of 2 more teams in the Pumas and the Griquas going up there and playing in the Anglo-Welsh Cup. Apparently, the Lions and the Bulls have both shown interest in moving up to play in Europe as well. So there is definitely the possibility of that happening. Obviously, when the next round of negotiations come into effect, which is for the 2020 season, will be the first one of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out, because that would be a real loss to New Zealand if that did happen.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, this is another reason why I'm so against, you know, a Pacific team coming into Super Rugby. I mean, I understand the argument that, you know, for the likes of the Sunwolves, Jaguares, and whatever else comes along, yes, you have to play the best to learn and to get better. But it's just, there's such a mismatch. It's very hard to market these non-Kiwi derbies as must-watch sport. It really is.
And thankfully, we've got rid of all the negativity that we had around the last 2 seasons and the conference structure that we had then. I think the whole point of having uneven conferences, i.e. 2 conferences of 4 and 2 conferences of 5, totally made it far too complicated for everybody, and that they need to keep the conferences the same size. Whether they add an extra conference at some point or whether they just keep growing 3 conferences, I don't know. But that is, to me, they have to keep that evenness so that people can actually understand the competition. And thankfully, I say we've lost that negativity. So with that, hopefully the crowds will increase. There have been some good crowds in Australia, because they've started off by playing themselves and not involving New Zealand, which has helped, because in the first 6 rounds, it's meant they've managed to get some good stories. They managed to get the good stories around the Rebels. The Reds have got a good story around them. The Tars have actually got good results if they've not got a good story, and it's only the Brumbies really that have underperformed.
But
so
if I'm the devil's advocate here, I mean, this could also backfire pretty bad, you know, because now we start playing, you know, straight. Now the Tasman derbies are starting, and if we see the same story again, I mean, it's going to be probably even worse, because now, you know, when you get a little hope up in your life and you get disappointed again, it always hurts even more.
Maybe so, but they do need positivity because otherwise no one will turn up to the games. But
yeah, but I mean, what are we going to spin the positivity about?
Well, at least beating each other and beating the South African side. So this is.
But that's also a disconnect in Super Rugby because it seems because South Africans and Australians, they don't really care about each other. They would probably prefer not to play each other at all. Both, and I mean, look at the Wallaby Springboks game, which should be like an epic test game between two of the best sides in the world, and it's not really a rivalry.
True.
Yeah.
Go on, Mike.
No, I totally agree with that. Actually, and I think a part of the problem is as well in terms of the public. In the back of their mind, I think it's like, yeah, it's cool, Stormers versus Bulls, it's wonderful, but we're not going to beat the Crusaders when we go over to New Zealand. You know, I think in the back of the public's mind, that's what they're thinking, and whether that has an impact on revenue, on interest, I don't know. But yeah, I definitely, again, just to repeat, I think until these countries are starting to be competitive versus New Zealand, the level of optimism in their local areas is not going to increase. And also the way the All Blacks are marketed is part of that as well. The All Blacks are just like this huge thing and everyone wants to beat them, but nobody ever really does.
Well, they've lost 2 games last year to the Lions and also to the
but it was
to the Wallabies.
Ref's fault, Paul.
The ref's fault. I see.
I'm joking.
We're not going down that rabbit hole. I can tell you right now.
No, it's a joke.
So you're right. The All Blacks' dominance as well. We not only do we need competition at the Super Rugby level, but we also need it at the international level as well. The next, as I say, the next TV deal will be interesting to see what South Africa decide to do, and what they can actually persuade the European countries and clubs to allow them to do. Because if they were to be allowed to join the Six Nations, for example, that would cause a massive outcry with Georgia not being given a chance. So that kind of thing, there's serious politics around that as to how they would be incorporated into a European season if they were to fully go that route. So I can't see that happening. So yeah, it's a bad thing. Sorry, go on.
Doesn't it make it is way more logic for South Africa if they want to make money at least?
Whilst South Africa might want to be part of the Six Nations, I don't think the Six Nations will allow them to come in. They'll allow the club sides to come up and play in various club competitions, but they won't allow South Africa to come up and play in the Six Nations.
But that's also good business for the Six Nations because of the real big difference. Georgia doesn't really bring anything to the table from a financial perspective. It's a pretty small country with a decent rugby team. South Africa is one of the main players in the rugby world, and they have an awesome test team, and they have a rich history. They will, and I mean, just see it for yourself, Paul. Like Six Nations and England going to go play South Africa away. That would be a huge game.
It would be a huge game, but that would make 7 teams. So you'd have to get rid of Italy. Otherwise, you couldn't fit it in. There aren't the weekends to have it. So I'd say I can't. Also, the Six Nations doesn't need South Africa. They already sell out their stadiums every game.
Yeah, yes. But if
South Africa would be an addition to it, but it wouldn't. But they don't need it. It's already the richest competition in the world.
It is, but it could be even richer, and also by becoming richer, if you want to be like really the devil's advocate here, taking South Africa out of Sansar and putting them in Europe, it would damage New Zealand and Australia, massively weaken them, and that's also I mean, you can beat your opponents on the field, but you can also beat them outside the field.
You can. I still can't see it happening. So anyway, let's move on to question 2. And Mike, as our resident Chiefs expert, are the Chiefs serious contenders? Before this season started, a lot of us were talking about them potentially being in the sort of bottom 3 battle with the Highlanders and the Blues. The Blues obviously have fallen away, but the Chiefs have gone on. Actually, no, they haven't been on tour yet. The Chiefs are sat there just 2 points behind the Crusaders and Hurricanes, but they've played 1 less game than Crusaders.
I think it's a bit early to say, really. I was surprised in the last game that the Chiefs were actually able to hold on and not concede a try at the end there. Whether that be from the Highlanders just getting their way over, which I thought they were going to, or from a penalty. But I think until the Chiefs play and beat either the Hurricanes or the Crusaders or both, I don't think we can say at the moment that they're title contenders. As well as guys like Damian McKenzie are playing, he can have an injury at any time, and I think there's still more injuries to come on the side. I mean, it's just any team will get injuries, right? But I think if guys like McKenzie, Leonard Brown get injured in that back line, that's going to massively hurt. If we lose Sam Cane, it's going to massively hurt. And those two matches, the Hurricanes and the Crusaders, will be massively physical matches. And let's not forget there's a trip to Africa coming up as well. So, I think it's too early to say. I've still got the Crusaders winning the competition. So yeah. I don't think Colin Cooper in his first year is going to be able to do it, but we'll see. If we beat the Hurricanes and the Crusaders, I'll start to believe then.
Talking about injuries, Charlie Ngatai was coming back. He was on the bench last weekend. So you've also got some players coming back from injury, which is strengthening them as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think Ngatai, he looked really, really good when he came on, and the experience that he had, I felt really calmed Damian McKenzie, because he had a really good game, and then it all went out the window, and he was panicking, and I think Ngatai was just there to say, look, calm down. And again, the impact of the likes of Brodie Retallick when he's fit and going, and Nathan Harris as well, I think, is a silent leader in that team. So, and Kane Hames, I mean, he's nowhere to be seen at the moment, but hopefully he'll be back soon. And they've got all the tools to do it. I think results are going to be the difference maker here, obviously, and we've proven against the Crusaders anyway that we're not quite up to it yet, and the Highlanders, really, you should say, in the situation they were in, they should have won that game last weekend, really.
They could really.
Mike, you're not selling Crusaders as the Chiefs at all here.
No, well, I mean, they had the ball on the goalpost there, and they just about touched it down, and they lost it. And then I think they had two lineouts with their own ball, and they lost both of them. So you got to take those opportunities, and they weren't able to.
But if I may to be pretend to be the Chiefs supporter here, I would say, look at us. We had together with Crusaders, we are the one who've been hit with massive injuries so far, and you're dealing with it. So what you have done now, this was supposed to be the season you were going to build depth, but maybe have a few losses. But you're building depth and you're not losing. The equation be when that squad is fully fit, you're going to have an awesome 23 probably.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that trip to Africa, if we can come out from that winning, I think it's 2 games we play over there. If we can win both of those as well, man, no reason why not. And excited.
Yeah, there is one big reason. I mean, you are the most hard done by the All Black camps, because when you're going to play the Sharks away, you're going to miss all your All Blacks, which is, you're the only team who's going to miss your All Blacks for an away game, which is kind of just no one even discussing it. I mean, if for a regular fan, I would see it as like a huge injustice, actually.
Yeah, you're right. No one is discussing it, which is quite surprising. I guess for Colin Cooper, the decision is going to be, who do we put into those positions if the All Blacks aren't available? And in terms of the number 10 spot, I don't really see. Tyan Falcon, he played well against the Blues, but he's kind of been a bit absent since. So, there's massive question marks, but hey, you know, all that's the money machine. You can't stop it.
Well, you'll have Tyan Falcon and also obviously Martin McKenzie will be between those two as to who plays. Just to run through the conference. So Hurricanes have played 5 and have 19 points. The Crusaders have played 6 and have 19 points. The Chiefs are 2 points back at 17 points, having played 5 games. The Highlanders have played 5 games on 14 points, and the Blues have played 5 games on 6 points. But one of the key points there that Michael touched on is that the Hurricanes and the Blues have already toured. The Crusaders are currently on tour, and you'd expect them to win their game against the Jaguares. Whereas the Chiefs have to go on tour in week 13, and the Highlanders go on tour on week 11. So those two teams haven't been on tour yet. I mean, we can discount the Blues, let's be honest. But the fact that the Hurricanes and Crusaders have both been or are touring or been on tour and are in the lead, I think you've got to say those two are the favourites to be the leading contenders in this competition.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I agree also. I mean, I agree we're favorites, but to me, well, maybe I'm coming from a position because I admit before the season I was thinking maybe even the Blues going to get above the Chiefs this year because of the new trainer and you lost a fairly few really good players. And I wasn't actually, also to be honest, Colin Cooper was not the guy I was like really impressed with, but so far the Chiefs and Colin Cooper have shut my mouth completely here. You know, I eaten humble pie and Chiefs would seem to be in a very nice spot. And that first game against Crusaders, yeah, it was a blowout score, but if you look at the contest, I mean, first Chief gave away like 21-0, like really stupid in the beginning. I mean, even Broderick Halleck made this like very unlike for him when he made that penalty in the goal area for the Crusaders. So, but as soon as the Chiefs got their act together, you took over that game. I mean, you definitely played better than the Crusaders, and basically didn't lose it until you got that pretty questionable yellow card in the end. I mean, many Crusaders fans can be upset with me now, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think that Colin Cooper in recent weeks has been saying a lot about wanting the Chiefs to play smarter rugby, and yes, the team are getting the wins, they're getting the results, but I actually don't think he's that happy really with how they're playing. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, how they go in the coming weeks, whether they're maybe a bit more, you know, post orientated, kicking for the frees. I think at times we're trying to be a bit too aggressive, but you know, that's sort of the style of New Zealand rugby these days. So, yeah.
You say that, and yet a lot of teams were kicking threes at the weekend. So, I think in conclusion, we've got to say that the Hurricanes and Crusaders are the favourites, and the Chiefs and Highlanders are dark horses. They definitely have the ability and to cause the upsets, but perhaps not got the consistency, the depth, particularly depth in squads that the other two teams do. Which leads me on to question 3. What would you do in the immediate term to turn around the Blues? And I think I'm going to throw this one to Herman first. What would you do to try and turn the Blues around?
Oh, come on, the Nobel Prize question here. No, to me it's short term. The Blues short term, because it appears to me it's a culture issue. It's a deep culture issue. I mean, if I would guess, I would say I think everyone in the Blues organizations are hurting what we're doing, but I don't think we're hurting enough. It's probably a little bit too comfortable there to be mediocre, and that probably comes from the highest place, from the CEOs, from the board, and it's going all the way down. So, and to fix that, you just can't do any quick fix to this. There's no way to do it. And there is, I mean, I think we all can agree they don't have talent enough to win the Kiwi Conference, you know, but they for sure have talent enough to be performing really well on a weekly basis. And they are not even close to it. Even the game we won against the Lions, they were dreadful in the first half. And it makes me think this is, yeah, it's much more of a mental issue than it's actually a skill issue. So, and mental issues are fixable, but they are much harder to fix. And I would be taking, yeah, I can't sit here with a straight face and tell you like this is what the Blues should do, because I don't really know, but I would say it's a culture issue that comes into the mentality.
I agree, and I think the long term, what the Blues need to do is to get rid of their board and start fresh at the very top and the backroom people before they even talk about the coaching and the players. That's stage one, but that's a long term view. I have a couple of ideas for short term, but Mike, any ideas for short term this season's what they should do?
No, I would echo everything that Herman said, and I'd probably go a step further and get ready. I know you're wearing a blue shirt, but this team has been a burning pile of rubbish from round one. They didn't deserve to beat the Lions. They played garbage in that game, and they played garbage in all the games they played this year. Now, I agree, the board needs to go. Tana Umaga just doesn't look happy. None of them look happy. Players don't look happy. I don't know what to do, Paul. What more can we say? It's a culture problem from the top down. I'm still not convinced about Umaga as coach. He's a great guy, great All Black, but how many chances does the guy need? And can we really sit back and trust that a change in management is going to equate to results? Umaga looks like he just doesn't want to be there. And, to lose to this Sharks team, the sad excuse for a Super Rugby team that they are, what more can we say? Just disgusting.
I think the Sharks team have got the talent, but they've just been underperforming this season. I think they're better than most of the results have been. I'm not sure they're as good as the scoreline suggests against the Blues, but I think they're better than their other results have shown. So for me, yes, it is a culture issue. They do need to start from the top down and get rid of the board. But you're not going to do that next week. And you're not going to do that over the next few weeks. And I think personally, I think there are two things. One, they have to start enjoying their rugby. But I think what they've done to try and enjoy their rugby is play way too loose and way too expansive. And they're giving up too many points, making themselves too easy to beat, too easy to score against mainly. And that's got to change. So for me, it would be a matter of saying, right, guys, we're just doing defensive drills for the next 2 weeks. And we're going to actually make it hard to beat us. And the goal for the next 2 weeks or the next 2 games or whoever we're playing against isn't so much to win or how many points we score, but it's how many points we don't, or how many points we concede. Let's just try and get the opposition down to 20 points at maximum, because that way we're actually in with a chance of winning a game. Whereas if we allow teams to score 60 points, it doesn't matter how many points we score because we're very unlikely to score more than that. And that's, to me, that would be where I would start is just having them doing defensive drills. Sure, they need to enjoy it but losing is not enjoyable. Winning is enjoyable, and it doesn't matter what style you're playing, losing is not fun. So let's try and find a style of play that will actually give us a chance of winning. And fine, it's not very Kiwi, but the Crusaders are difficult to score against. The Hurricanes have are the best defensive team. They've given up the fewest points of any team so far this season, and we're not complaining about them being unexciting. It's a matter of knowing when to do it, and the Blues just don't know when to do it. They do it all the time. What they need to do is to me, is just do defensive drills and forget about attack for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I also think that the media has a bit to answer for in this as well. Not in terms of the issues that are happening within the club, franchise rather, but, this hype train about the Blues, it's like none of us should be surprised at what's happening here. And, really, if you look forward for the Blues, all they've really got to rely on now is, what these great players, the Rico Ioanes, the Kira Ioanes in the form of his life, Sonny Bill coming back in 2 months or something. That's what they have to latch on to. The players in this team that I just mentioned need to focus on their own, as bad as it sounds, own performance and just go out there every week, put it all in the park, and play positive rugby. Enjoy, like you said, their rugby.
It was kind of. I listened to a player interview on the Rugby Dungeon, and it was interesting to hear an English player who had played for the Chiefs. I've gone blank as the guy's name now. The lock who played for the Chiefs and then moved back to the UK. And he was, sorry,
is it Latimer?
Possibly, that sounds something like that. I can't remember his name now. But he was saying that at the end of the day, you only have so many hours a week to train. And one of the big differences between Southern and Northern Hemisphere rugby is how they allocate that time, more than necessarily what their skill set is or how good they are. And in the UK, they spend more time on defensive side of things, whereas in New Zealand, they spend more time on the attacking side of things, which is why in Super Rugby you see more points being given up because less time is spent on defence. My favourite part that actually he said about was, and it's not to do with weather. He said one of the ways they get round weather is apparently they soak the rugby balls in washing up liquid before training, so the balls are deliberately wet and slippy. So when they do have to play in a rainy, wetty day, oh dear, a rainy, wet day, then they're already used to a slippy ball, and their skills can cope with it. It does mean they're not as skillful at tackling or as organised defensively because they just don't spend as much time doing it. It's not that they can't do it, and it's not that the British players can't handle it. It's the fact that the British players spend more time on organised play, and I found that really interesting as to the different approaches they take, and perhaps the Blues need to take a European approach for a couple of weeks just to make themselves hard to defeat.
And just on that, I would suggest that the practice put into the attacking side that we see in the Southern Hemisphere is exactly what the All Blacks are doing, and I would suggest to you that it's the poor defence that has seen the All Blacks lose the games that they have, and potentially the World Cup next year. It's just interesting, I'm a big believer that defence wins matches. It's not points, it's defence.
I think the saying goes like this: it's attack wins matches, defense wins championships.
Exactly. So anyway, there's our thoughts on how to fix the Blues. And next,
I hope everyone is really enlightened.
Well, I hope Tanner Manga's been listening to me. Clearly, this is the show where he can save his career. He could go on. So that's what if he listens to me, he can save his career. There you go. I'll making some bold claims.
You should hire you as an assistant. Some
Northern
grit in the coaching box. That's what we need.
Northern grit, yeah, just because I'm from Yorkshire. One of the points that we were talking about is that people aren't talking about the All Blacks camps. And I must admit, I like not being part of the establishment because I can't get banned from press conferences by saying stuff like this about Tanner Manga and how he should be playing. Whereas one of the reasons people aren't talking about All Blacks camps is because they're scared of losing their press accreditation. And they know that if they do that, they're not going to get press accreditation for the All Blacks games, and therefore they'll lose access to the players, which means they lose their interviews, which means they lose their articles, which means they lose their jobs. And that's why.
You mean this is the reason why we don't speak about what happens to the Chiefs, that they actually have to play one game, which can actually be really important. They will probably qualify for the playoffs, but that could be home advantage in the quarterfinal or not. That's how fight it's going to be. Absolutely
no. I say that the reason it's not being talked about is because journalists are scared of losing their accreditation. That's my belief anyway.
Right. Michael, give us a rant. Give us a rant here about this.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Paul.
It's wrong. The problem is that the All Blacks, that Rugby New Zealand, and this is a problem. And here I am going to go on a rant. Rugby New Zealand knows that all their money, and I said this earlier, it comes from the All Blacks brand. So they're overly protective of that brand, extremely protective, too much so, which is actually hurting the brand because now you can't get near the All Blacks players. They always used to say, "Oh, you can get near the All Blacks players," but not anymore. The media machine around the All Blacks is so strict that they just won't. That you can't get near them anymore. No one actually really finds out what they're really like, what they're really saying about anymore. and it's a shame but that's the way it is, and because of that, they are very strict with all media outlets, even those that are big ones like Stuff or gone blank as to what the other one is. But anyway, New Zealand Herald, there we go. Even the journalists there have got to be scared of the All Blacks media machine and whether they'll be allowed back or not. And it's a disgrace. They need to let the press and let talk a bit more freely, and make their players more accessible, rather than just means that at the moment they're just too scared of the damage of the brand being damaged.
Yeah, you're totally right, and I would just jump on the bandwagon and also submit that where would the All Blacks be without the media? Come on now. Media sells tickets. It's say what you want about the brand. It's people have to hear about the brand. People have to know about it, and that is done by media. So yeah.
Absolutely, it's done by people like independent media as well as mainstream media. But nowadays, they definitely don't want anything to do with anyone who is independent. They're very.
But this is also a media problem, Paul. I would say, because you don't have that many big media outlets in New Zealand, and if they just decide and organize themselves and like send a message to the All Blacks, okay, if you're gonna treat us like this, we're gonna treat you like that, because. The only reason why we're doing it is because they're probably acting by themselves. If they would act as a unit, that we're not going to take this, which is probably like what would happen. You being from England, trying to treat English media outlets and England journalists like this, it would be war.
Okay, but the other point now is that because the All Blacks probably have got a larger email list and circulation than the media outlets do. So they don't need the media outlets as much anymore because they have got Team All Blacks email. They have got a very large Twitter presence. They've got a very large Facebook presence. They can get their message out without having to use the media outlets anymore. And it's a very sanitized message. It's not one that people really want to hear. But in some ways, it's the only time they get to see some of this information, because the media machine doesn't allow the mainstream press, let alone the independent press, independent media, but not really press, have any access. It's scary the direction it's going in. I think it's bad for the All Blacks brand in the long term.
And also, just I really want to say this, because I remember the last time I was on the show, we were talking about a certain player's mouth during games and the entitlement sort of side of things. And I think if the media are going to be controlled like this and sort of censored, and the player behavior is only going to get worse. It really is. And that sense of entitlement that these young guys feel like they can come in and, somebody, it just needs to be, I don't know. I can't find the words, but yeah.
I agree with you, Michael. It's not that complicated, really. This is a lot of it is just common sense. Just let's remind, and Kiwi media is hard. That's hard to know Fleet Street like in England. It's not that vicious. What's to be scared of if they're telling us some truth? That's usually a good thing to hear some truth. And I guess this is also common knowledge in New Zealand too. That people know that not every All Black is an angel. They're good rugby players, but come on, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying they have to be angel. They don't have to be role models 24/7, but just keep it real.
Well, and it's no surprise that Kano's little fling with the Australian beauty princess came out in the Australian press, not the New Zealand press. There's a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't come out in the New Zealand press that could do about these players. And the more they get protected, the more these stories don't come out. As you say, the higher their entitlement, the more they'll think they can get away with it, the more they will get away with it, and the more they'll push the boundaries, and we'll get some really sad. And we've already had some sad and disgraceful things happen. Remember the rugby player down in Wellington who got drunk and beat up 4 people with his mates, and then initially the judge let him off because potentially him going to jail would impact his rugby career. Well, I'm sorry, but if you get drunk and you beat up 4 people to the stage where someone has to be out of work for 6 months because he's getting headaches all the time, you deserve your rugby career to be hurt by going to jail for having some jail time. And thankfully, the appeal happened, and he did end up getting some punishment, more than. But initially, we had people, not New Zealand Rugby, but some of the smaller unions, his regional union, coming out and trying to do character witnesses and this kind of stuff. And you're like, if the level of entitlement is at that level, imagine what the level of entitlement is further up. And it's just, yeah, crazy.
But there's another side to it too. But sorry, if I may add, with Keith Murdoch, God bless his soul, who died here, who was, when it was completely the other side, it was not right at all either. You know, he was completely hanged out by the union, got zero protection, and he maybe should have been. But again, common sense is there is a middle way here. It's not that complicated to see it.
Oh, there is. And those days, I mean, there are people like, I remember there was a person, I've got Bill Beaumont, for example, who's now heads up World Rugby. He was obviously England captain. He then produced a book about his time as a rugby player. And because he'd produced a book and would obviously take royalties from that book, he got banned from all rugby, because rugby is supposed to be amateur and not supposed to make any profit from rugby back in those days, which shows you that the rugby has changed, has moved 360 since then, or 180, taken a completely different direction. So the way that players were treated back then by their unions isn't how they're treated today. They get a lot more support, and that's a good thing. But it's a matter of when that support steps over and becomes too much and too entitlement side, that it becomes a problem. I think we may have talked about this one for long enough, though, guys, and I think it's time for us to move on, because we'll probably have to go rush through these last 2 questions a little bit. But how is the Australian conference shaping up? How do you think these teams are going? I'll quickly run through the table so people are aware. The Rebels have played 6 games and are on 20 points, which is the most of any team, or most equal of any team in the competition. The Waratahs have played, the rest of the teams have all played 5 games. So the Waratahs are on 14 points, Reds on 13, Brumbies on 9, and the Sunwolves down there on 2. So is this a case of the Rebels looking strong and fantastic and running away with this, or can you see one of the other sides coming up and challenging them?
Yeah, I think Rebels, I mean, we have to give Rebels some leeway. We've done good in parts so far, but it's still a very new project, and to get so many new players and new coach to gel in that short of time, they will. I mean, I didn't tip them to win the Australian Conference before the season. I still don't do, even if we're actually on 20 points. For me, I think the team, we talked a little bit yesterday. For me, the team that stands out for me in Australia is Waratahs, and for the reason that they actually look like they care this year. They show some grit, they show some steel, they show like they're playing a little bit more for the jersey. And they always had some real top talent in Waratahs. I mean, we can speak bad about Australian rugby, but players like Folau, Beale, and Hooper, in my book, these are world-class players, you know. And if you give them a solid foundation around them with a hard-working team, they can be really good. So I see Waratahs winning that one. And the other team I think that surprised me a bit is the Reds, who probably doing what the Blues should do. What the Reds are doing now, the Blues should probably look at. You know, you are a complete restart, and they took some serious heat for letting Quade Cooper go and so on. But that's the kind of decision you have to do when you are serious about changing something. And again, it seems like it's a team that plays for the proud of a jersey again. You know, they're putting some real performance in there. It's not pretty, it's not beautiful, it's not like high skill, but goddamn, it's hard work. You know, and if you're gonna beat them, even for the Kiwi teams, you know, if we're gonna beat them, there's no way we can have an off day. They have to be full on to beat the Reds, but they will do it if they're fully on. But if they get involved in an arm wrestle with the Reds, I can easily see Reds win a game or two against Kiwi teams also.
Yeah, I think the Rebels have been a revelation, but I think it's early, like you said, early on the comp. Still, I think the Waratahs will go through at top. And I actually think the Reds might be up there as well. But what's been most disappointing and from the outside is just the Brumbies, man. I mean, they've been really poor, and it's a shame, but the Waratahs, came into the season. So interesting, isn't it? Waratahs came into the season, man, they had to perform after last year, and they have. But the Brumbies, haven't had the same pressure, I don't think, and they've just bombed completely. So, I'm not sure. I would, again, though, I predict the Waratahs to finish top.
No, the Brumbies have been poor. I mean, they're already 11 points behind the Rebels. Okay, fine, they've played one less game, but they've still got to tour as well. They don't tour until week 14, so they're one of the last teams to actually tour, which means they should be. This is when they should be picking up their points before they tour, and they're not. So the Brumbies, I think, are out of it, even at this stage. The Rebels, to be fair to them, I mean, they haven't toured either. They don't tour till week 10, so that's in a couple of weeks' time because week 8 is this next weekend. So, but to be fair to them, they have been picking up tri-bonus points in their wins. So not just picking up the wins, but also getting those tri-bonus points. So they have made the most of what has been a very easy schedule for them. And we've seen that now against the Waratahs. They're two real games against the Waratahs, against Hurricanes. They've lost. But to be fair to them, they have made hay while the sun shines. So they've put themselves in a good position. So I agree with you too. I think it's going to come down. The Tars are the most likely. They've already toured, and they're only 6 points behind with the game in hand. The Reds have also toured, and they're 7 points behind with the game in hand. So the Tars are looking in the better position because they have got the better skilled players, and as we say, they are playing through till the 85th minute. So many of their games, they've been making game-changing plays late on, and the Rebels have shown a lot of grit. Sorry, the Reds have shown a lot of grit as well, but they are still a very callow side. They've still got a lot of youth, a lot of inexperience there. So I think they're going to have some off days along the way, which is why I'm going to back the Tars, same as you guys, to come above the Rebels, because I think the Rebels' tour is going to cause them pain, and they're going to lose points there.
But I don't want to be too negative about the Rebels too. But obviously we get a lot of Western Force players and so on, but still, let's not forget they won one game all season last year. They are improving, and they're improving a lot. So we should at least acknowledge that.
Oh, absolutely. As I say, they have made the best of an easy schedule. They've done exactly what you need to do. They've been getting tri-bonus points, not just the wins, but they really have been playing the right style to get the tries, and they've done very well. Mm-hmm. But they've got much harder tasks to come.
Yeah. Now, the only thing we haven't talked about here is I'm a little bit curious now with the Sunwolves, who are dead bottom there, and they are playing the Waratahs this weekend coming up here. But this is what we have to remember about the Sunwolves is they literally have no preseason. So I would say now they have a bye. I would say their preseason is finished now. This is probably going to be the first time we're actually going to see if they are they really competitive or not. I mean, they are a little bit better than they've been the other years. We have to give them that. But if they are really competitive, we will see now. Because also, if you look at their selections, I think Jamie Joseph selected something like 42 players so far to play for them. He's not even been close to pick a starting 15. And will he start playing? Because we have some good players there. We have to give them that too. So
they do have some good players, but as you say, they haven't had a preseason, so they're not a team. They are a bunch of players, and also they've had injuries as well. And that means that they're on a bad vein of form, and I think that it's basically being used as a training camp for the Brave Blossoms and for the June tour, and for the June Test matches. As an entity those, a total waste of time. It's all about trying to get some players ready for Japan in that summer for those June internationals. I can't see them doing anything this season.
I think they have a couple of wins in them. You will see. We will get back to it.
Well, I think Mike might be on my page on this one.
Yeah, no doubt.
Any comments on Sunwolves, Michael? Should we move on to question 5?
Who's the Sunwolves again?
Exactly. I thought we might be along those lines. So, question 5. What do we think of the Africa Conference so far? And I'll quickly run through that one as well. So that's the final conference. The Lions top the conference with 7 games on 20 points, the same as the Rebels. But again, they've played 1 more game than the Rebels. The Stormers also played 7 points, on 13. Then we have the Sharks, Bulls, and Jaguars have all played 6 games. The Sharks on 13 points, the Bulls on 9, and the Jaguars on 8. So, is this just for the Lions taking, or are they going to get blown away by the Stormers or eaten by the Sharks?
No, I think the Stormers are there or thereabouts, and I mean, as much as I've hated on the Sharks, I mean, they did beat the Blues in New Zealand. I mean, and I think the Stormers and the Bulls have already toured New Zealand, and the Sharks are currently here. Are the Lions coming to New Zealand this year?
Yes, they are. So the difference, I guess, between the Africa Conference and the other two is that obviously the New Zealand and Australia conferences, they can pop over just for 1 game, and their tours basically to South Africa for 2 weeks, whereas the Africa Conference tours are for 4 weeks. So the Lions come here in week 10 for 4 weeks, so 2 games in Australia and 2 games in New Zealand.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the Lions can get a win in New Zealand against one of the 2 teams that play, I'll bet them to the hill. But I think the Stormers might go through number 1 at the end of the day, and I don't think the Sharks will quite overthrow the Lions, but they'll be there or thereabouts. Yeah,
I think that the Stormers and the Sharks having both, well, the Sharks got 1 more game on tour against Hurricanes this weekend, which check out my predictions and we'll talk about it later, but let's be honest, they're going to lose. Whereas the Stormers have got through have got their 4 losses on the road out of the way. So they've got sort of downhill, or the wins at their back now for the rest of the season. They still have to win away. Even their game against the Bulls, they lost away. They've been great. They've won all the games at home, but they've not won away. And they need that away win, I think, really to get their season going. And then I'll believe in the Stormers. But until then, yeah, they only seem to be able to play in front of their own fans.
No, I agree with you about Paul. I mean, what and this has been going on for years and years and years. Stormers just can't win away. I mean, never-ending story. But the other thing I would add about the South African Conference is the good thing about it from like a pure entertainment value is it looks to be by far the most even conference. I mean, even the Jaguars are finally looking like something is moving there. And I'm quite excited at seeing the Jaguars playing the Crusaders next week. The Crusaders coming on a tough tour schedule. Jaguars having a bye, and as I told you before, that they changed the eligibility laws for the Pumas. So now you're not qualified for the Pumas just by playing for the Jaguars anymore, because they're going to select players from Europe. And that led right away to be beating the Waratahs with a very impressive performance. It actually looked like they cared again, And I think quite a lot of money involved in this too. If you only play for the Jaguars and don't play for the Pumas, you're going to make a lot less money. So they're going to be some. I assume a lot of more Jaguars fans going to be motivated. And to be fair too, I mean, I think all of us who follow rugby have been thinking like the Jaguars have been underperforming, because that's a test team who actually can. We've seen them push the All Blacks for 50, 60 minutes, and if you can do that, you should be able to perform in Super Rugby. I mean, it's obvious the talent is there. It's very obvious.
The Jaguars have done well at home to get a couple of wins, but they're still a confidence team, aren't they? Let's be honest. If they get up, then they can push on. If they don't get up, then if they feel the ref has gone against them, then they do lose their heads, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I still think they have a little bit more in them.
But they are improving, but still there's a long way to go. Anyway, I think we've after our rant about New Zealand rugby, we are running behind. So let's quickly go through our predictions for this weekend. First up, on Friday night, the Hurricanes host the Sharks. So, Mike, how many will the Hurricanes win by?
I'd say the Hurricanes will win by about 12. Sharks they'll be there or thereabouts in the first 20 minutes, but I think after that the Hurricanes will blow them off the park.
Herman?
I I will say Hurricanes by 25 points.
Wow. Okay, I've gone Hurricanes by.
Come on. If you concede 40 points against the Blues, what do you expect going to happen against the Hurricanes?
True. I guess so. I'm backing the Hurricanes by 10. Perhaps I'm on the low side there. I'm looking at the lowest of you guys, but yes. Then we have the Sunwolves versus the Waratahs. Herman, you've been talking up the Sunwolves, so how do you see this one go?
All right, I got to back up my talk. Sunwolves by 2. We're going to get the monkey off her back here. And the Waratahs are going to become the Waratahs team of old again. Look like they don't care, and we're going to hear all the crisis talking from Sydney again.
And Mike, so how many for the Waratahs do you think?
I actually agree. I think the Sunwolves might just put the squig in this one.
Go, Mike. Go,
I'm going to go the Sunwolves to win by 5.
Wow.
What's in the water for you? What have you guys been smoking? That's crazy talk. I'm sorry. Waratahs by 10. This has home. This has away win written all over it, probably by a bonus point. So yeah, Waratahs by 10. Then on to Saturday night, and Mike, I guess you will be at FHM. Is it FHM? FMH? Anyway, whatever
FMG.
It is. FMG. There we go. FMG Stadium. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh dear. For this one, for the Chiefs versus the Blues, how do you see this one going?
I think this will be very, very close. Chiefs will win by 5 or less.
Just a quick reminder that the Chiefs beat the Blues earlier in the season at Eden Park by 6.
Yeah. I just have feelings that this is going to be a very tough game. The Blues will be well up for this. They always are against the Chiefs. So, yeah, Blues to be leading at halftime, but the Chiefs will be winners by 5 or less in the end.
Cool. Herman?
I mean, almost like in complete agreement with Mike today. I mean, I see exactly the same scenario coming forward, because I think we can expect some kind of reaction from the Blues after the last weekend. They're going to try to play by the book and play more structure, put a more little effort on defense, play smart, but they will mess it up eventually, they will. So yeah, Chiefs by 5 also.
Oh dear me! You have more confidence than I do in the Blues. I'm going Chiefs by 10. Their record against New Zealand teams for the past 20 odd games is abysmal. So yeah, sorry. Yes, I am wearing a blue jersey, but even so, yeah, Chiefs by 10.
They draw last season, didn't they?
Oh, maybe they got one. Yes, but they've not won one in something like 20 odd games. I think it is. It's an amazingly long run of not winning a game against New Zealand opposition. We then head across the Tasman to perhaps one of the more intriguing games of the round: Brumbies versus the Reds.
I'm going to go Brumbies. Only just by 3.
Herman?
Mike, I'm disappointed. We're losing our connection here. I have feeling for the Reds here. I would say I'm gonna because Brumbies are in this crossroads, so we just can't make up our mind if we're gonna play like gritty forward, flashy backs rugby, and then against a hard-working team like the Reds, that's gonna be perfect for them.
So how many by the Reds then?
3.
So last week I went home advantage has been a key thing this season, so I picked the Brumbies to beat the Tars because of home advantage by 3, and I'm going to make the same mistake again this week, suggesting that home advantage is going to carry them home, and I'm going to back the Brumbies again by 3 for home advantage over the Reds. Maybe it's madness doing the same thing again and expecting a different result, but we will have to wait and see. Then we go to South Africa for the Lions versus the Stormers. Herman, kick us off on this one.
Well,
sorry, before you go any further, I just spotted a comment by Andre in the comment about the Brumbies Reds. He says, draw and everyone to fall asleep by the 65th minute. So clearly he's not expecting much from that game. Anyway, sorry, carry on. Lions versus Stormers.
He's not wrong. I would... Well, Lions, it would be quite easy to tip against the Lions now, but because they look, they're not in a good place. But again, Stormers away, that's probably even a stronger case than home victories in the Super Rugby. So I would say Lions are gonna get their act together. More not because they're good, but because Stormers just can't win away. So Lions with 10 points.
Yeah, I think the Lions might win by about 12. Actually, I just got this feeling that this game isn't going to be quite as close as people are predicting. It's sort of been built up as the big clash of the round, but yeah, no, Lions will win it easy.
Well, I think the poor form of the Lions, and I think what we're seeing is that the Lions' new coach technically is fine, but I think morale and charisma is lacking, and he just can't lift the players. So I'm going to back the Lions by 3 at home, but yeah, I don't think they'll get a big win. I think there's still some real problems around motivation for that team. And to close things off, we have the lovely Sunday brunch game of the Jaguares versus the Crusaders.
Well, maybe I should back up my talk again here. My whole stomach is just screaming to me now, like, Herman, don't tip the Jaguars. They're playing the Crusaders. This is going to hurt you, you know. But we have a bye. Crusaders coming from the altitude, more and more travel. Crusaders also have lots of injuries. And for sure, if it's one game the Jaguars are targeting at home, is to get the big one. You know, that's the one that seems to be up for them. Yeah, let's go for it. Jaguars by 3. I'm tipping a big upset here. Yeah, I know about it.
So, Mike, have you been eating the funny mushrooms as well, or are you going to back the Crusaders?
No, I can't quite go that far. I'm going to have to bet the Crusaders by 15.
I've gone the Crusaders by 10. I've not gone. I would have gone bigger, but with missing Richard Moanga from an attacking point of view is a big loss for me. But yeah, their forward pack and Whitelock and etc. will just sort this one out. So, thank you very much for joining me. Mike, let people know where they can get in touch with you and have a chat about rugby and all other things. Yeah,
I send pics. You can follow me on Twitter at Real Mike Pullman. And yeah, talk rugby, talk about anything. And yeah, just shout out to Joseph Parker as well. Keep your head up.
Yep, I'm not a boxing person, but yeah, he did a decent job, and unfortunately couldn't see it through. Also, you can catch Mike's writings at Last Word on Sport, so check that out as well. Herman, thank you very much for joining us, but you are the social ghost, so there's nowhere people can talk to you between shows, so they have to come back here and talk to you.
Yeah, why not?
Thank you, everyone. I've been Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. So yes, always up for good old rugby chats. Please comment down below or catch me at DrivingMaul on Twitter. Please do subscribe to the channel. The red box down below, or my face will be there on the recording. Isn't it a lovely face? And there'll be a box there with my latest video. Finally, if you're listening to this on your podcasting app, give us a 5-star review. And yes, if you're listening, you can't see me waving my 5 fingers around. What a waste of time. So do subscribe on that app as well, please. Much appreciated. And do enjoy whatever rugby you are watching. I will be back again on Thursday to preview this round in depth with Grit Sports from South Africa.